Recently, I was invited to an interview from a Twitch channel that I have met recently. Their name is Alexandria RPG. Very similar to Fables RPG, but with a space in between. And this was what happened in a 2-hour segment of the interview. It went very well. There was a lot of questions that were asked that I've thought about in the past, and then there are a couple that made me do a little bit of thinking. So I was really thankful for the interview and how it went, and the people over there are really great. So this is, if you're interested in learning more about the game, this would probably be a very good interview for you to be listening to. Anyways, if you enjoy it, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks. For the most part.
What part of Texas?
Austin. It's not where I was born, in South Texas, and then moved to Austin about 7 years ago, and have watched it grow like insanely since then.
I joined the Air Force in San Antonio.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna mention that since you're military.
In fact, the wife and I are kind of thinking about moving back down that direction. Cost of living is insanely housing prices, everything.
Where do you live?
Just south of Seattle.
Outside Seattle. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't. San Antonio is pretty good. You don't want to come to Austin though, because
No.
yeah, you're gonna
I was
pay the
looking at
same
like
amount.
New Braunfels area.
Oh yeah, my
Yeah,
fiance actually has family out there.
yeah. So just outside of San Antonio, I can go into San Antonio, or drive up to Austin if I so choose.
Right.
And I went to high school at Samuel Clemens High School,
Where's that at?
the Shirt Cibolo area. So south of or north of San Antonio, just south of New Braunfels.
Okay. I spent a lot of time, like, we grew up in South Texas, but we would go to New Braunfels once a year for vacation to go camp out on the river and go to Schlitterbahn, the water park. Yeah. But
Oh, yeah,
if you want to be close to both San Antonio and Austin, that's like the perfect place to go to, because it's smack dab in the middle, 45 minutes both ways.
yeah. Well, and I love the story behind Schlitterbahn, because most people don't know that the Army Corps of Engineers uh, flooded a little German like resort that was there. So it
Oh,
was like a little
really?
hotel area. Yeah. And then Army Corps of Engineers changed the river and decimated this little this place, and the Army Corps of Engineers helped them build the first water park
Oh, I didn't know
as,
that. Is that
as
what it was?
compensation.
Oh, I thought it was like retaliation. So that's
Now
okay.
they were like, "Oops, sorry, we totally flooded your little water or your nice little village." Because it was like a little resort area, so you could go get
Right.
a hotel and a cabin, and stay in this little German area, and then Army comes in and accidentally floods it. They were like, "Hey, what can we do?" Well, you have a bitchin' riverfront property now.
Yeah.
They're like, the river is our property now.
I mean, they did turn it into like, I think it was like the best, considered the best water park for years after
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love going there. I haven't gone in years, but I really want to again after, COVID and everything.
Hopefully someday we can get back to normal.
Right.
So somebody in chat was asking if you were the one that reached out to him, Tortuga Verde.
That does sound familiar. Yeah. Uh,
That is how I found you,
yeah.
is through him. So
I've been doing a lot of reaching out to people of similar mindsets, and yeah, people with similar goals. So that's probably true.
our green turtle there, is it's Tortuga means turtle and Verde means green. So
Right. Right.
uh, he's a good friend, and he's a great guy.
Oh, okay. So I didn't reach out to you directly. I reached out to him.
Now you reached out to him, and he said he was streaming his D&D prep when you reached out.
Wait, does he go by Thaco Rules? Do you
on
go by
Twitch
any?
now.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
They're
You have any other names that you go by there?
I was honestly surprised that you were able to read his name so quickly. But I guess that's because you guys already know each other.
Yeah,
Uh,
we've got a few people that tune in very regularly. Hey, how you doing, Lackey? For some reason or another, my cat cameras don't want to click on.
yeah, the thing I reach out to a lot of people, and recently, and I've been mingling and talking with people. But it's kind of hard, especially when people are running D&D games, to sit there and actually have a communication. And yeah, so it's usually kind of a DM thing. People are just sending each other messages and whatnot, but that's why it's
Yeah,
kind
it is always tough to when people are playing, you're like, oh hey, I'll drop a chat or I'll drop something, and just
of right.
it doesn't really work because
Yeah,
they're playing. But
right.
um, when they're doing prep or whatever, you can get people are chatting while they're doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Talk to people.
So the funny thing is, Lackey and Tortuga that are in the chat right now, they're both on the board for the library because we are a nonprofit. So
I did see that, and I was curious about what exactly you guys do.
so the entire idea behind being a nonprofit was to be a library, and then people could donate books or time or whatever, and then get a tax receipt, which that helps entice people to send some stuff. In fact, I got to send out all my tax receipts from 2020 by the end of this month. I only got like two left.
Yeah, it's that time again.
Yeah, it is. I try to keep on top of them, but it's easier said than done. Uh,
Right.
because because I've got to um, appraise all the books and everything that are done or that are given to us.
Yeah.
So it's not just randomly um, uh, uh, like, oh, all these books are $5 a piece. So you try to give them fair market value on a receipt. So there's a little extra time and everything in it, and especially if it's a book that you just can't locate, you gotta take your best swag on what that book should or would cost. Um, so sometimes we get some very unique things that come into the library, like what the heck is
Horror
horror
rules.
rules? Yeah, what is this game worth? Um, I'll at least give uh, the purchase value of it. Sometimes there's games that are worth considerably more.
Yeah.
So we
That's
got a few people that are tuned in. If you want to talk about, introduce yourself, because I hope they know who I am.
Yeah, my name's CK. I am creator of a tabletop RPG called Fables. I've been working on it for about a year and a half at this point, a little less than that, and playtesting it. Well, I playtested it a little bit in September, but a lot more recently. The game is very similar to traditional style fantasy RPGs, such as Dungeons and Dragons and the like, but with my own take on it, and hopefully in ways that kind of innovates the old systems and things that we are used to while playing these types of games.
Um, so you said it's kind of along the basis of um, D&D. Did you use fifth or third or OSR rules kind of as your starting point, or have
Well,
you kind
the big thing is it's built on a D20 system. So I grew up. Well, I don't want to say grew up, but I started playing 3.5 when I was 14.
and I played a lot of 5e and Pathfinder and 3.5 as well. Never fourth edition. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But also a lot of other tabletop RPGs. So they're like the very standard things that are in those games, hit, uh, rolling to hit, damage dies, saving throws, DC, skill checks, things like that are what's common or what I actually use in the game. But as far as like the character creation system goes, and like when you get into the more minute details, are the things that I'm really trying to change and innovate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was asked, is there, you have a link to, you have a website or anything that people can check out what you are
I
doing yet?
I do have the website domain, but I don't have the website. Yeah, like it's not built up yet. If you wanted to check it out, my Discord would be the best thing. That's the thing that I keep in contact with most people about. I have all the material that I have made for the game so far is on that as well. As far as the handbook goes, and then things are a work in progress. So I release updates weekly on the game, and the updates can be pretty much anything that would constitute part of the game, not just like the mechanics or whatever, but like lore and other things as well.
Nice. I'm going to try to link to your Twitch channel in here
Okay.
so that we can um, get maybe. Then on his if you go to his Twitch, you can down underneath the picture frame, down in the down below the doobly doo or whatever anybody wants to call it, you will see the links to his Discord and stuff like that.
And my YouTube as well. I put a lot of work into the Discord and YouTube, and now I'm doing a lot more towards the Twitch as well.
Nice. Yeah, I just so frustrated. I made a bonehead error, and I changed our email server and accidentally lost all of our YouTube stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, if when I changed because it was being my email address was being hosted by Google, and then when I
Right.
changed email hosts, went to another host, it deleted all my Google related stuff, including YouTube. So
That's crazy. That's I can't believe that would happen.
I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh,
yeah, so it's been the, you know, I want to get back on YouTube, but also
mhm.
dude, yeah.
Yeah,
Once you've
yeah.
done something like that, you're just like,
You
oh,
got to give yourself a little bit of a break before getting back to that at the very,
yeah.
very least.
It's been a little while. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So somebody ask, what platforms are you planning to release Fables? So
Uh,
hardcover, PDF, drive through RPG, Roll 20.
the big goal is, and I want to hopefully be there by the end of the year, is I want to create a Kickstarter for a physical copy of the rule book, and I'm still thinking about like if I want to do it like standard rule book, dungeon master guide, or game master guide, monster manual, like your 3 books, or have like just one standard book to really cover everything. But the big goal is I want to turn Fables into a company and create material for it. With that being said, though, I am going through Drive Through RPG to actually create different adventure paths that I'm going to be releasing for like this game, but I'm also going to be altering them so they can be released for other games as well. Um, and that's kind of like the first step in possibly like creating this into an actual business. But hopefully, Kickstarter is where I see myself in like around a year, at least getting started with it in a year's time. But it takes a lot, especially when you're one person play testing a game and having to just make updates on it constantly, and because everything is like polishing and detailing and adding more stuff and then polishing and detailing that and fixing it. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and I'll be happy to take a look at anything if you need some advice or anything like that. Drive Through RPG has a Discord as well. That there's a lot of chatter in there between different uh, developers, and then we've got people within our community here that are definitely willing to give some advice. They've they've done board games or RPGs, and they know that running a small indie RPG game is all about working 3 full-time jobs,
Right.
because you got your day job to pay your bills, you got your job as the developer, and then you got your job as uh, uh, public relations.
Right. Yeah, it's I appreciate any amount of help, how no matter how far you're willing to help. Like I appreciate it. Anybody who's ever helped me, I really do. I'm very thankful for it. So I appreciate you reaching out and extending even this interview to me. I very much appreciate it.
Well, we love it when people are. This is a really interesting, unique time. Back in the '80s, when I was a little kid, and going to conventions and stuff, because the family had a comic book store, and going around seeing, people trying to create a game out of nothing for the
Right.
when there wasn't there wasn't the internet, so they had at best try to find a bulletin board system and upload their game to it, or go to conventions and try seeing games that were printed it at a corner copy store and and hand stapled together.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that it is an entirely different time where that creation, it's not easier to create the game. It's just there's more support available.
Right. I mean, eh, you still got to put in the same amount of work, but at least you have the resources now that you probably never had anywhere close to having in the 80s or 90s or yeah, even 2000s for that matter.
First question. He says, "Here's a softball. How much did you laugh when the streaming TV network named Quibi stole the name of one of your game's races? And how much more did you laugh when Quibi died? An ignorable death." I like the ignorable death part.
Well, to be honest, I don't keep up with like any like to be honest, I'm really bad at like keeping up with current events, and I have a team of family who loved ones that tell me about these things. So I didn't even know there was a TV streaming service called Quibi that I guess perished. They're no longer around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pumped like $1 billion into it in 2019, and it was dead by mid 2020. Like
Right.
it lasted a year, and it was weird because they were making like weird, really short. There was like high production short clips. It was just one of the weirdest things. And now,
Like a televised Vine.
basically, so they were like three minutes or something like that.
Oh, really?
But they were all like really high budget, and there were like big actors and stuff behind them.
That's weird.
Yeah, high
What?
production TikTok.
Why?
Yeah, I just don't get it. And they were trying to do some like 3D stuff, and there's some really weird things. They were I don't get it.
You could have just put it all on YouTube. That doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and well, they were trying some new technology with it as well, which is why it's caught. Like there was some big money behind it. But then one of the streaming services basically just acquired all the content, and it's going to be still available, but
Right.
nobody knows what it was.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many streaming services that I feel are like that. Like The Office and Parks and Rec got stolen by a streaming service called Peacock that I never even heard about until like both of those shows got stolen away.
Yeah, well,
A couple weeks
Peacock
ago.
is the CBS,
Oh,
or no,
that makes sense.
not hang on, ABC.
NBC, yeah,
Yeah,
NBC owns it.
NBC, yeah.
Yeah.
You had ABC, NBC, and CBS. CBS has CBS All Access in the U.S., but not anywhere else in the world. And ABC, I don't know if they have one, but they're owned by Disney, so their stuff is probably going to pop up on Disney Plus.
Yeah, eventually Disney Plus is gonna own everything besides Netflix or something.
I'm not a fan of. Not a huge fan of Disney personally.
Right. Yeah.
They own way the Fox purchase was where I drew the line. As soon as they bought Fox, I was like, you guys now own way too much of the entertainment industry,
That's kind of
and
crazy. Yeah.
it's near monopolistic because they can dictate so much, and it's kind of scary.
I've kind of thought of the same way as how Disney has been operating. As soon as they were releasing Disney Plus, then you can see that they had Discovery, Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, and like other things on there. It's like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to your game.
Yeah. Okay. we're about to go down a rabbit hole. I felt.
Oh
that.
Yeah, and it can happen all the time. That's the other reason I try to keep these fun and lighthearted is that way. If we spend an hour, 2 hours talking just about your game, then it's cool and all, but it doesn't get us. We want to know the person that's behind the game, like
Right.
why you're creating the game. Let's talk about the different races you have available for your game.
So I don't think I've actually really talking to players about this, but my races function in a specific way that kind of ties on to the whole the lore system in the game. But right now, there's currently 18, and there's planned to be 21. There are 21 because there are 21 major deities that are inside of the game, each one having their own patron, which is why there are 21 races. And those are just the major races that I plan on at least having established by the time the game is ready to release to market. But yeah, that goes a bit further with kind of just playing into how the 21 deities kind of function in the world at large, or I should say worlds, because each one of them have their not only their own races, but they have their own planets, in which they have their own going on.
Okay, well, let's give us a little backstory on the world, or the realm you've created. I guess it seems how you said they have their own planets and everything.
Right. So loosely, because nothing is set in stone. The planet, though, that most of the adventures are going to be played on, and it is called Edua. And Edua is, it is very much like your normal high fantasy settings, but 2 ages ago, this is the third age, is when we're going to be releasing the game. But 2 ages ago is when the world was created, and Edua was kind of a place where the deities tried to establish not like kind of like a harmonic presence within the universe, and they tried to have their races go cohabitat. And during that time, the deities kind of got at each other's throat for some reason, and there was a large battle that split actually this huge continent into dividing parts, spreading out to make smaller continents, and kind of dividing all of the deities into what would be known as good, neutral, and evil deities. I think that's about probably as basic as I could put it.
So somebody asked 21 deities, patrons, and races. That's a lot of content, which is a considerable amount of content.
Right.
Do you feel you can fully flesh out the lore and story of each of them, and how do you balance them against each other?
The races, I think, if anybody looks at them, none of them are completely the same. Yeah, there's a lot, I think, that someone who's creating something of this scale, I guess. I mean, lore wise, it is a pretty high scale, I guess. I don't ever really think about it that way though. Um, but I have so much to draw from now that like with so much uh, culture has been given to us for like these kind of fantasy stuff that not everything is 100% like of my own creation. Like yeah, there are things like the Quibi, Xandurians, Ganese that are like things of my own creation. But then you also have orcs, goblins, halflings, or elves and dwarves, and I'm gonna definitely be using like their mythology to create what their worlds would be like. So I think this is one of the things that like since I was 16 years old and I legitimately read my first book, I've just been kind of obsessed with like fantasy and mythology and settings such as this nature. And, uh, I don't know. It's kind of just like I live and breathe it to a certain degree.
I like that. And I like that you're looking at, or you're using, um, generic, for lack of a better term, generic races and some of your own.
Right. I definitely wanted to feel homey. I love dwarves and elves, orcs and goblins. I wouldn't want them to not be in the game. I feel like the world would be missing something if they weren't present within the lore of the game.
I personally am not a dwarf guy, but that's because I read The Hobbit when I was a little kid, and if you read through The Hobbit, the dwarves in there. Yeah, if anybody's listening, they know my rant on dwarves and The Hobbit.
Oh, you didn't like the dwarves and the Hobbit?
No, go back and read the dwarves and The Hobbit. They really make you go, oh, this is like the worst race ever. But the dwarves in Lord of the Rings, entirely different. I mean,
Right.
basically, you just got one for the most part. But the dwarves and The Hobbit are just bumbling fools, and you're just like, oh, I always hated them. And
I think if you put like 13 characters into a book, like you're gonna have some pretty bad ones. Like you're gonna have the ones that people are gonna hate for sure. Uh, I don't remember too much of their characters. I think it's hard to. I think that's one of those books that you really need to read over and over to like really get a grasp on the characters, like all of them. Besides like
yeah,
Thorin and Bilbo and Gandalf.
yeah, because most people remember, they remember two or three characters and that stick out in their head.
Right.
Or a lot of people just they've really never read the books. They've read at the books, and then they saw the movies.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hobbit movies, I can understand any sort of frustration you might have for that movie. Yeah, or those movies. Yeah,
Three movies out of a book that was shorter than any of the Lord of the Rings books.
right.
That they
Well, you can't. People wanted to blame Peter Jackson. You can't really blame him because he even talks about like how disappointed he was. And it's because like company influence got stepped in, and they're like, "How are we gonna make as much money as we can from these?" And, yeah.
well, they gave him a lot of freedom to do what he wanted, and he brought in a ton of stuff from the Silmarillion, which that read that as a backstory thing.
Right.
Don't read it as something to enjoy. And then they just added a bunch of random stuff in too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, when you're like told that you have to make a movie that should be like
yeah,
half the
hey, you're
length
gonna make
of
a
Lord of the
trilogy
Rings, a trilogy,
instead of
yeah, even just a movie because it should have been like, yeah, well they were 2 hour long, but
yeah,
yeah,
it should have been 1 2.5 hour long movie,
right,
but
or one four
uh,
hour long movie. Fine with, but that's just because I love the Lord of the Rings and how I watched the extended editions. Like we just watched them all again, every single one. We watched every single one on Christmas. Extended edition, 12 hours, just watching Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
I
I would
haven't
do it
watched them in
again.
ages.
Yeah, I would do it again tomorrow.
I watched the original Star Wars trilogy every year, so
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still a fan of Ewoks.
I saw your Star Wars poster behind you. I can't see it right now, but I did see it earlier.
Oh, the posters behind me are they're for Warhammer 40K banners.
I thought I saw an Imperial one with the Imperial logo.
No, not from these angles.
Oh yeah,
Do it.
I thought
No,
I
I don't
saw it
have.
earlier. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't have any Star Wars up in the office at the moment.
I must have just glanced at it and got it wrong.
And banners that are behind me, you can't see them. People on my stream can see them. So point them out. That's an orc banner for an event. Space Wolves, Black Templar, and Dark Angels. My wife paints banners, so
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah, she's an artist. Yeah, the banners are actually pretty awesome.
Does she sell them at Ren Fair?
No,
She should.
no. She sold a couple to. She hasn't done a banner in ages. She sold a couple to 40K players. Yeah, if you've ever played 40K,
No,
people really get it.
I've never done Warhammer. I've always wanted to, but it's very epic in scale. From what
It is immensely fun.
Yeah.
So the weird thing is, when I lived down in Texas, I stopped playing Warhammer because tabletop miniature gamers down there, I was never impressed with. But man, some of the best role playing in my life was down in Texas.
Really?
Yeah, and then up here, tabletop miniatures. I've had a ton of years playing them out here, and it was always a little bigger struggle until more recently to get good role playing game groups going.
Right.
But
well, if you do move back, and you want to take the probably over an hour long drive to get to Dragon's Lair in either San Antonio or Austin. I know the Austin Dragon's Lair, they always have Warhammer games going on. Well, they did, before COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, they always had them going on. Like, I would walk in there to go get a comic book or something, and people would just have like these huge, immense tables just filled from brim to brim with miniatures. And I was like, what is that? It's Warhammer.
and it can get they've got rules called Apocalypse where you can just do giant games. So a standard game is like 1,500 to 2,000 points, and an Apocalypse game start at like 4,000, and you'll see armies that are 10, 15, 20,000, or I've got armies that are 40, 50,000 points. So
that sounds like a lot.
It is. It's a ridiculous amount. It is a ridiculous amount.
I thought you were about to say that it was 40, 50,000 like miniatures. It's like that's too much money.
No, so yeah, I may have that many in all my armies. So we talked a little bit about your classes. We talked a little bit about the world that you're building, and also how kind of crazy you are to try to do 21 different deities and everything. And I may suggest that you bring that down a little, and then put some of those deities in expansions,
right?
Just for a sanity sake. So let's talk about some of your classes, or how you separate different jobs in your system.
So I don't know if this is the best analogy. It's just the best one that I found so far. The classes are they're just a starting point. But the idea behind the game is to be able to just create you given the option to create the most unique thing for yourself, where no one could really ever copy who your character is going to be. And that's because instead of just giving you a few options, like every single level you get like a new option, like you multi-class or you continue your class. Like that's all it's ever really been, right? But instead with this game, your options are completely determined by like your attributes and your prerequisites. And yes, you might have to, because it's built off a point-based system, you might have to invest points into like a spell school training or like a class. But you can, whenever you level up, all you do is get points, and you can use those points towards anything that you can possibly use them towards.
Nice. Sorry, people, I'm playing with my camera.
You're okay.
angle I had. So those that are watching on the stream, I have two different cameras going. One for the actual meeting software, and one for the stream, my stream. Oh,
Gotcha. Yeah, it doesn't really work as the same as like skill trees, because there are very small like trees that you might follow, but they're not like long things. Like you don't have to get like the most basic thing at level 1 so you can get something at level like 15. All I see is like your eyes and your forehead.
yeah, the camera is, I forgot, has set up that when I adjust the focal length, that it automatically zooms in, so I can like grab the eye.
Yeah.
So it's just feeding a straight, clean HDMI out. So no matter what the camera does. So those that are watching at home, poor CK just got an extreme close up of like my eye and forehead, because I went to adjust the focus on his camera, and it just, the camera is set up so it can zoom in and on the output. So it was like, hi there.
Yeah.
We're always professional here, I swear.
This is an off day. Sorry, I'm trying to get some. See if my girlfriend can do me a favor real quick. My voice is, or my mouth is a little parched, so I just need some little bit of water. So, yeah.
Your jug you had run dry.
Yeah, actually, it did. I drank the whole thing today. Yeah, well, interesting tidbit about me. I used to weigh 350 pounds. So,
Ooh.
yeah, I was a hefty person. And my weight's kind of fluctuated since. But at one point I was like, thank you, baby. She is great. I used to weigh 300. At one point I was 185, like 12% body fat. So I got real slim, but then I quit smoking and gained a little bit of weight, and now I'm working it down. But I lost a lot of weight by doing keto, and while doing keto you have to drink a lot of water. So for like years now I've just been drinking from a gallon jug.
Good. Yeah. When I in college, I was tiny, and I've gained a lot of weight over the years. Just being broken and old, and you wake up in the morning and everything crackles and pops, and knees don't work right anymore.
I'm only 26, but like for what I do for work is like physical labor. I've the past couple years I've been like, stretching my way out of bed every single day when I used to just hop out.
Physical labor will age you very quickly.
Yeah, so I'm trying to create a game.
That's why our grandfathers and fathers all died much younger.
Yeah, they died
like, Grandma,
way younger.
How come Grandpa died when he was like 61? Well, if you lived as hard as he did.
Yeah. Didn't sit behind a desk all day. He didn't know what a desk was.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You can really do some damage to your body. But hey, congrats on you for losing that weight. It's not an easy thing to do.
Thanks. I'm working my way back down again. So hopefully I get back into at least under 200s, and I'll be happy. But now I'm a little heavier than that.
Yeah. I'll never get back down that way.
It works. I swear by it. One point, I don't want to get us too sidetracked, but one point I did lose 50 pounds in like 2 months.
Oh wow!
Just from keto and running. But the more weight you have to lose, like the easier it is to shed. So if you really get your mindset into it and just do it, then it'll go. Like just depends on like how well you stick to it.
Yeah, I know a couple other people that are on keto, and they love it, and it's doing great for them. The big thing for them is like they're tracking what they're doing and drinking a lot more water. we as humans are typically pretty bad at drinking water, and we usually eat when we're thirsty.
Honestly, it surprises. Yes, that is very true. But it will surprise you how dehydrated you are when you actually drink like enough water to hydrate your body, like, and you actually pay attention to it.
Yeah. When I was in great shape, I drank lots of water, but also ate a lot of food. But I was working out so much.
That's kind of how I am right now. I eat a lot. I just work out a lot. Yeah.
Like, how do you eat so much food? Well, I run 10 miles a day,
Yeah. Close.
and I swim, and
Oh.
but so what are your next hurdles for your game? So you said you had been doing some playtesting in the past, and you're back into playtesting. Heard you yesterday talking to some people about doing some playtesting on your stream. So
Yeah, we're about to start a new venture starting tomorrow, and I had a couple people. Met one from Twitch, and he uh, had his buddy join, and then had a few more. Some of them are actually watching the Twitch stream right now that we're playing Mondays, and everyone got together, and everyone seems to be meshing really well. So I'm super excited to
nice.
get playing on Mondays, but that is an adventure that I'm planning on publishing actually through Drive Through RPG and probably DM's Guild. I'm gonna convert it for both like Pathfinder and Fifth Edition,
Nice.
and that's just like a big dungeon crawl that I'm gonna have them going through. And then Tuesdays we have a long-term campaign where I just continue making up stuff, and then Thursdays I actually have our playtest arena, which I try to have like new creatures to test out. I will create classes and have people use those classes and kind of introduce people to the game at the same time, testing out like how different mechanics function. So um, anyone that's been in my Discord for a while knows that like every single week I'm just pumping out updates and just fixing things. So I think once the game kind of gets to a point where like I feel like it can go into beta. Like right now I feel like it's an alpha stage. Once I feel like it gets to a beta stage, I think that's when we're gonna have a turning point and things are gonna change a bit, and we're actually gonna be like trying to get to the goal of like doing the Kickstarter and stuff. So I guess my big goal right now is to get that to the beta stage, wherever that is.
Yeah, you're kind of the earliest stage we've talked to anybody that's working on a game. We've talked to people that are on Kickstarter now or have just finished up a Kickstarter. But you are further along than people that have reached out to me that want to start Kickstarters.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
like I've had people reach out with basically a loose idea and said, "Hey, I got this idea. I want to do a Kickstarter," and it was like, "Well, you need to be further along than that."
I couldn't
Like,
I could not imagine being on Kickstarter right now. I would be there's too much, especially when you're talking about a game like of this scope. Like I knew when I was getting into it, and like I set the precedent and the idea like this is gonna be a lot, but it's like I just have to make sure I get to myself to a point where I can handle the amount of work, and once I'm like happy with it, and I think it only needs like so much more testing left to create the actual game, then I'll probably put it in the Kickstarter. But just converting it from like a PDF that I have on Google Docs to like an actual handbook with illustrations, table of contents, like all the typos that I have in there fixed, like just that stuff, like that's going to take forever to do. So,
oh yeah, finding and sourcing art.
right.
It just, yeah, a lot of people, they have no clue, and I'm glad that you understand the job ahead, because the job ahead is huge.
Right. It's just one step at a time. That's how I'm looking at it. And, right now it's just make the game run as best as I can. Yeah.
So I got a question here. Why the name Fables? Are you concerned about the
Always have been. Yeah.
confrontation with the video game series Fable and the comic book series Fables?
Is there a comic book series called Fables?
Apparently, that was the question from a viewer.
I've never heard of the comic book series. I definitely have heard of the video game. Um, Fables was just kind of like always the working title for the game, and well, I was a little concerned with Fable, but Fable is also hasn't really received love in a long time. I don't know if it's really going to be something that is going to get reignited. You know what I mean? Um,
So Fables is more a placeholder at the moment
I
while you
think
flesh it
so.
out.
I do. I always really like the name, but I also found that there would probably be a better title. Eventually, I'll get to that better title once it comes to me. I think, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's getting the meat of the game together, and then let the game find its name.
Right, exactly. I
Yeah,
got if it was like thousands of people knew about my game, it might be a concern. But now, right now, it's like just make sure before it gets too popular, if it ever gets too popular. Like if I feel like it's gonna get too popular, maybe I should change the name right then and there. But
and maybe
yeah,
keep it as the Fables system, and
right,
then name the game something else.
right.
Uh,
I've only had one person ever ask me that question, so I don't think it confuses people right
yeah,
now. So maybe it will eventually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fable, man, when's the like Fable 3? I think was the last one, and that was like a decade
A
ago.
decade, yeah, something like that. And it kind of fell out of grace too. Like everyone liked one, and then two and three were like, "What happened?" Yeah,
It was funny because the one was good, but they overpromised, and two they overpromised again, and three they overpromised again. Everybody's like, "Nope, you overpromised. I'm done."
yeah. And
um,
I think they're
and
overpromising right now for like some kind of revamp for like I think they're trying to remaster the first one or something like that. And,
oh, geez, yeah,
yeah, but the comic book series that more concerns me because that's the actual title of the game. So
yeah. Fables: Legend in Exile. It's from Vertigo, which is the adult comic line from DC. So
oh yep, I've seen this. I've
yeah,
definitely seen this before.
yeah. It looks like it's been out of print for a few. So had 150 issues, but it ended in 2015. So
I think this was a pretty popular one, so that might be something that is concerning.
yeah, they had a whole lot of story arcs. Cool. I and I'm a comic book guy. I don't know why I didn't know about this. Apparently, my wife did though.
Well, maybe it's time to think about changing the name. I don't know. I'll take suggestions. I'll take suggestions for anything for the game, and I always any kind of help is
Put
appreciated. So
them on your whiteboard and rack and stack them.
yeah, yeah. I wish I had like a laundry list of notes to show you, but I like this week I had just so many updates where I just knew like I had to put so many things on the back burner until I just released this most recent update, which I put out like 2 days ago for the game, and yeah, now my notes are like minimum when it was like used to be like 2-3 pages long of just like things I
Yeah.
needed to do. So
Well, and
yeah,
sometimes you got to focus on your list may get long, but you've knocked off one giant thing, and then the next 20 things are small.
right,
You know.
right.
Uh,
Sometimes it just looks scary. Yeah,
yeah, you open up, you're like, oh my god, I got 2 pages of crap to do this week, and it's like you knock out that one that took a week and a half, and then the next
yeah.
19 you knock out in 2 days. You're like, oh, well, it wasn't nearly as bad as it felt.
I think I've gotten a pretty decent system to it now because it's like I play my games up till Thursday, then the games are done, and then I have the time to actually because that's where I take all my notes from, and things that like pop in my head, obviously. But then once the games are done on Thursday, by Sunday I can have like that update hammered out and sent out for the next week. And it might be a little frustrating to some of my players, especially the ones that's been around for so long, because they like I add so many new things. I'm like, hey, you guys need to be aware of like these 10 new things that are changes to your characters because I just changed these 10 new things. But everything I feel like I do is an improvement to the game somehow. So I don't know how upset it really makes me. I really hope people actually appreciate it. So
Well, careful on the always adding stuff, because military, we call it mission creep. You know, you just the scope of something just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it's kind of out of control, and then it's really hard to parse things down after that, because now it's like building a deck of Magic cards. You're like, oh, I need to get back down to 60, and I'm like 68 cards, but I can't take any of them out.
Right.
Eh,
I actually really understand that reference. I played Magic for years when I was a kid, so yeah, and when I was an adult too.
Yeah, you're like you're at 62 cards. You're like, oh, I really need to get to 60. What can I take out?
That's the worst, when you got like only one or two, where you're like, they're all great. Like, can I just not have 62 cards? But it's like, that's not the meta.
Yeah, you can, but your the math goes out the window, and it is something that game designers can traps that game designers can fall into, is adding something that's really cool, that works well with something else, and it should be something that that's not in the core rules, something that's in an expansion down the road, or something like that, because that happens all the time. I've seen somebody was putting together a game, and just out of nowhere he got into like pirates and swashbuckling, and he created like 4 new classes, and I was like, these are their own book, and it took me like 6 months to convince him to cut those out of his core game, because he was totally into them. I was like, no, you have you're those 3 core right there is the start of an expansion.
Right. I think I do understand that, because what I'm trying to do is create like the foundation for people to work from, and the idea is to have abilities and classes that have a wide range. So when you're choosing different things, like one person's going to look at the class and these abilities in a different way than someone else might look at them. And from there, you can kind of create like this unique vision that you have for your character. And when you have things that are very specific, like a swashbuckling pirate, it, like as a class, I think that is too specific for what I'm trying to do. Now there are certain aspects of a swashbuckling pirate that could make good combat abilities that any character could go and choose for themselves, and make it like their own little unique thing. You know what I mean? But to have like things that specific and towards like the characters, I think kind of it makes you feel more railroaded, which is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it where you have the most freedom as possible.
Nice. I got a question. Do you have plans for art? And if so, what approach are you will you will you source and commission art? Like, are you going to seek out different artists for each race, or are you going to try to create a constant identity?
I mean, if I have to seek out different artists, I really want the style to be all in the same kind of sphere. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do that. I have reached out to artists before, just to get like sketches done for my characters, and to be honest, like if you're paying for a cheap sketch, you're gonna get a cheap sketch. So it's not something I put out there.
I know a lot of artists, and I think one of the best memes is a picture of welding, and it's like $15 an hour, and the welds are like all crappy. Then it's like $35 an hour, and it's like there's like a flower pattern in the in the welds. It's like and that goes for voiceover artists, video editing, anything that is a skill that can be varying levels.
Some kind of creative service or something. Yeah.
You find the cheapest artist on Fiverr, you're going to get the cheapest artist on Fiverr.
Yeah, that's true. I really love classic. Like when you look at a D&D original like adventure art, that's the kind of stuff that holds dear to me. Even though it kind of looks like it was drawn in the 80s, because it was drawn in the 80s, it's still like
original, like the notebook sketch style.
Like the what is it, AD&D, where like that demon is like, you know what I mean, like that big-headed demon's just kind of like looking, and it's just black, and that's like the player's handbook or something, like that kind of art. I I wish I could like pull it up and like share my screen with you or something, but yeah, I'm a big fan of classic art, and there's a lot about art that comes out nowadays that I'm not a huge fan of, and I kind of want to keep things looking, I guess, realistic, and have like that classic touch to it. So I found artists that I really liked. I just don't know how to describe them. Yes, that's it right there.
Yeah. So those of you at home can't see that it's the AD&D Player's Handbook with the rogues prying the eye out of the idols, or the gem out of the idol's eye.
There's also like the one with the
I'd,
Viking lady fighting the dragon. Like that's a really good one. I just love
you,
those.
you, yeah, and that's some of my favorite art as well. So I love the beautiful simplicity of that art, because it was never like as beautiful as all the new art is. It's all done digitally, and it feels digital, and it's lost some aesthetic. And I love that old art. I love it. I love it a ton. I love opening inside, and everything is black and white, but it's this black and white in just all the right ways.
It feels like it has soul and like character, while like a lot of the art that comes out nowadays is just, it feels lifeless to me. Like, you know, this kind of looks like just like it looks like drawings, while these look like something alive, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, I got a few friends that do amazing hand drawn art still to this day. I'll send you some links to a couple of artists you may like. Let's see.
I would love that.
How are you ensuring diversity and representation in the world? E.g., how was playtesting gone so far with Black, Asian, Indian, Native, or other playtesters? And have their perspective help guide your lore or the lore development?
Actually, I don't. To be honest, I don't ask people like what their races are. I have playtested with people that are of obviously different ethnicities, that have trouble speaking English, and I've had problems playing with them. Uh, I played with women. I know women wasn't really a thing, but that you asked about, but I think something maybe good to mention. I mean, I think I have a girl, but probably going to be joining either Monday or Tuesday nights and playing now. But it's anybody who's interested. Like I'm not, if I'm not bigoted towards anybody in any way. Even like children that have never played Fables before have played my game, and they launched fireballs at their own crew members or at the party members. Like, but if they want to play, like they want to play, and like whoever wants to play my game, like, dude, I'm happy. Like,
Well, it's great trying to get as many different people playing as possible. Exactly. I always say when you're in the playtesting, you want to see how everybody's going to attempt to break the game.
Right. The only thing that I had was when I was looking for people for my long-term game, I just wanted people that have had experience playing before, because I didn't want to explain how like everything worked, and like they don't have, like they have things to compare it to, while people that have never played it before never won't have anything to compare it to.
You were looking for somebody you didn't have to teach them how to role play.
Right. But now in like the Monday session, I think I have one person at least that's never even played any kind of role playing game besides my own. So
nice.
Yeah. And as far as like how that affects my lore and my races, there are sub races to every single game, and none of them have. I don't, like I was talking about with like the classes. I don't want to be too specific, where like one of my races is coming from like a specific kingdom, and this is like the specific things. But there are like different like geographical locations that they come from, and they receive benefits for that reason. Like there are snow elves and arid human folk and river halflings. So uh, people can look at that and draw their own connections to it, and have them create like their unique selves doing that.
So basically, within each race, anybody can go however they want. You know,
Pretty
if they
much.
yeah, if they want
Uh,
to play Asian dwarves, you know.
what's your it's definitely your prerogative. I don't like I love freedom in a game. Like first like real RPG that I played that was a video game was Skyrim, and what caught me of it was like I can do anything, like that's how I felt when I played it. And like ever since then I think I mean, like I fell in love with D&D when I was playing it, but I was playing with friends and like we were all young, so like the concept of like freedom maybe wasn't as expansive as like when you're playing like Skyrim. You're like I can just do whatever I want, and like from then I've been hooked. I loved it. So
I like a variety of different things in different art. Like one of the things I like about D&D that was to many people was restrictive is I personally have always loved the alignment system, but I like
right,
it as a GM. So when a cleric does something totally out of alignment, time and time again, hey, you've shifted from lawful good to chaotic good or whatever, and you now have to do stuff to get back. I use it as a tool
right.
to keep people playing within their character.
I
Um,
I think that's an important tool to have as well.
yeah, and there's a lot of people like, oh, it's so restrictive, and I was like, don't think of it as restrictive. For most people, it's not restrictive at all. I
Right.
mean, you, chaotic neutral elf rogue, does whatever he wants, and after a while, they're gonna settle into something. But when you have things like clerics and paladins that have a very strict, life path that they have to be on
Yeah.
to do what they do, something like that's a great tool. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I love systems like old D6 Star Wars and Deadlands, where you don't really have classes. In Star Wars, like, hey, I'm a smuggler. Have you smuggled anything today? No. When's the last time you smuggled something? Oh, I took a juice box from the cafeteria today.
I haven't played old Star Wars. I think I played the most recent one. I played it a few years ago, so I don't know if the one's been out since then. But it
Yeah, the
was on
stuff from Fantasy Flight
a.
had, had specialty dice.
Yes, it did have special dice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's Fantasy Flight.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
It's a good game. It is.
Yeah.
My favorite is still the old D6 Star Wars, just because for the most part there were no classes whatsoever. There was also no leveling, so your character you created was pretty much the character that you were going to run. You had to do pretty sizable stuff to expand your capabilities.
I like systems like that. Those are probably I've probably enjoyed the character creation system in that probably than I'll enjoy the game in general.
That's one of the reasons I love being a GM is character creation. It's one of the most entertaining parts. Next Sunday before the stream, we're gonna do it today, but everybody was still tinkering with their characters, creating a Deadlands. It's one of library members is going to be running a Deadlands game,
Yeah,
and so
you're telling me about
for
that.
first time in ages that I've sat down to create a character for me to play in that system, and he's kind of based upon an old character. Um,
I've never played Deadlands, but it's like a western, right?
yeah, it's the Weird West.
Weird West,
Uh,
like a Dark Tower sort of thing.
yeah, so you've got magic. So you got hucksters who they cast magic by. So you got the Book of Hoyle. Hoyle is the card company, and they put out a book back in the 1800s of different card games. Well,
Okay.
these people all learned how to read between the game rules and find the spells that were hidden in the Book of Hoyle. So hucksters use decks of cards and spells out of the Book of Hoyle to cast spells. It's hilarious.
Is this the
You can
thing your character did? Or is this the thing players had to do?
that's
Oh,
the that's the character. That's a something you can do in game.
okay.
Um, you got gunslingers, lawmen, you got priests and mad scientists. So the old Wild Wild West movie
I've
with um, Will Smith.
right. Yeah, I've always wanted to play a system like that. I've never had a chance though. So
It is a super fun and silly game. I've played it a bunch, and I've run a bunch of games for it, and I'm actually looking for. It's been 20 years since I've played in a Deadlands game. So I'm excited.
I'm happy
Because-
for you. I really am. It's always good to finally find a group for a game that you've been wanting to play. I,
and it's cool because it's got unique character creation because it uses a deck of cards.
oh, that's interesting.
So if you draw a 2 of clubs,
Uh-huh.
you get a 1d4 in your stat. And if you draw like an ace, if you draw an ace of spades, you would get a 4d12. So a 2 is a d4.
Uh-huh.
Three through like 3 through 7 is a d6, or 3 through 8, excuse me. And then like 9 and 10 is a d10. Face cards, or there's 9 and 10 are d8s. Face cards are d10s, and aces and jokers are d12s. And then so you don't have like a standard stat. Then
Yeah.
the suit, clubs are a 1, diamonds are 2, hearts are 3, and spades are a 4. So you draw two of spades, you get a 4d4.
Right.
And so basically anytime you need to roll, so you got to do lock picking. So you've got 3d10 in lock picking, and you're trying to pick a lock. Well, they give you a target, and then you roll your 3d10, and then you pick the highest die. So hey, you need an 8 to pick this lock. You roll 3d10. None of them roll an 8 or higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't roll if you don't roll an 8 or higher on 3d10, you don't pass. So I always thought it was and I love creative ways to create characters, and that's a super creative way to create a character, drawing
I've never
cards.
heard of it before. Like it's honestly very intriguing. It's another way to use the system, or use a deck of cards as like in a unique way.
And talking to game designers, we always run into people want to reinvent the wheel,
Right.
and some people they have great lore or whatever. I tell them, hey, look into using Open D6 or Fate or Savage Lands. Look at, because they're not the rules person. They're they've created a cool story or whatever.
Right.
And then some people they've got a great idea. And I totally need to rework. I love THAC0, but I need to rework how it's done. It's like, well, you have issues.
Yeah, when I went into it, I knew I wanted a point-based system, and when I was creating the different systems that come up with it, I don't really know what inspired it, but my attributes for the game are like, I think that's probably like one of the biggest hurdles for people whenever they're looking at it, because they're like a little confused, because people are used to like having this high number that gives you the small bonus, right? Like 18 gives you a +4, or 16 gives you a +3, right? Instead, in this game, your attribute directly affects, and it is your modifier. So if you got a 5 strength, you get a +5 for your strength whenever you're rolling for different things. And I think once you balance, like for me, it's like this ever long like struggle to balance that out, to make that where it works in a clean way like it does in other games. You know what I mean? Instead of like being too overpowered or underpowered. So, but there's just a lot that goes into that. But I think that is it helps create that difference, and it helps me have like the other aspects of my game that make it different playing similar games.
So if your stat is your modifier, can you have a 5 in strength but a negative 2 intelligence?
Yes, you can. You
Okay.
can. So you start off with all 0, and you have 7 stats instead of like your normal 6. I added resolution because I always thought will and wisdom weren't the same thing, but for some reason, when you had a wisdom like score that affected your will saving throws, it didn't really make sense to me. So I added resolution, which also resolution has become, in a lot of ways, like the premier stat for the game. It's not meant to be that way, but um, it is just a very useful stat to have. And I guess I shouldn't really say that because every stat is useful, but there are there's a lot of things that make it different than just like your will saving throw. Um, Damn, I forgot your question. I'm so sorry.
No, whether you could have if you could have positive stats, if you could have negative stats, because it'd be really boring if your stats were only positive.
Right. So at 0 or at level 1, you have 0 across the board. And from there, you are able to increase your stats to a certain amount. But you can increase them all up to level, or not all of them, but you can only go up to level or a score of 4 for each one. And you can increase each one higher and higher if you give negative to different other attributes. So every single negative point that you put into one attribute, you regain another point to spend somewhere else if you want. So you could just be basic and have like, you know, like your base amount, which you're not going to have them like that many stats that have like a pretty decent modifier to it at level 1, or you can drop like a couple of those to -3 and like really boost up like what your stats are going to look like. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
that does.
I feel like I
so
explained
another
it weird. Sorry.
no, that makes sense. It's I definitely something I want to see, in play in time. And I would not mind jumping in a play test game sometime in the future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just let me know whenever you're interested.
you got a new question. What is a game mechanism or spell system in Fables that you had to abandon because it just didn't work out? And did you recycle any parts of it?
Well, I do. There are things that like I fix, and I actually save a lot of my old ideas, and I under like a little
Good.
folder in my notes for legacy ideas, and I can't. I mean, they're partly my baby. Like sometimes you gotta give your baby away, but like they're still like they're still part of me. Um, but I don't know if it's the biggest one, but the first one that I had where I just had to get rid of was I had arcane weapons, which was kind of like my take in trying to create a wand or a staff that was just like this generic weapon that could cast like different elemental energies with a different effects, like a bolt, a beam, or burst, and do it at like a lower level, so you can always cast those instead of having like spells. But I found that like just having spells makes more sense. I mean, the arcane weapons, trying to do that, I think was more complicated than what it was worth. And you could just go and invest your points into different spells and have pretty much like the same effect. And you would never have to really worry about it.
That's actually kind of, and I like that you keep a list of old ideas, and I also love that you refer to it as your baby, because I say people they can never hear their baby's ugly. And a lot of times what will happen is they'll have an idea that becomes this core idea that made the entire game, and then they've made changes to the game over the years and don't realize that one core idea that they can't get rid of is the bad part of their game now, because everything evolved around it, and it's now their appendix that makes no sense.
Right. I bred myself for a long time to be a writer. I still really enjoy writing, and it's still a huge part of me. But being a writer, like when you're looking up talk, or you're dealing with people who are reading your work, like you gotta be able to like learn to just cut things out and take criticism well. You know, if you can't do those things, you're not going to be a good writer. And like coming into this project, I was thinking the same thing. Like, you have to have like you have to be your biggest critic for your own ideas. Even though you might love them, like it doesn't mean that they're gonna be there forever.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to cut the appendix out, and it it is the hardest thing. I remember writing stories in high school and college. Be like, no, I love this part, and then you get talked into it. And you're like, wow, this story makes way more sense without that part. You're like, oh.
Yeah, and you can always save that part for another story. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, yeah,
Could be the catalyst for another story, or like a bad rule in one game can be a great rule in another game,
right.
or you stew on it, you rewrite it, or it makes for a cool expansion or something.
Exactly. It could be the inspiration for something bigger and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that somebody at TSR thought that Psionics was a great idea, and still to this day, Wizards owns them and keeps trying to do Psionics.
That's funny. I actually play in a Pathfinder game where I'm a psychic on Wednesdays, and my psychic does great when there's characters that I can actually use mind affecting things on, and horrible when there's characters I can't or creatures I can't. Yeah.
That's always the problem with psionics in fantasy games. They're either broken or useless. Like there's kind of almost no in between.
It's so broken. Like our last fight, I was actually able to use like my premier spell, and I killed the thing in 2 rounds. Like, and it was like a big boss. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's just stupid.
When Wizards did the D20 Star Wars, it was basically D20 modern with psionics, and this for the Jedi's, and it was just so unfun.
Really? I never even knew that they did that. It doesn't.
Yeah. It was done 2001.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty far. Pretty long ago now.
Yeah. Then when they shortly after DD3.5 came out, they did Star Wars Saga, which was a much better. They slimmed down the rules a lot. It's still a little wonky, but it's considerably better than the standard D20.
Can I ask you what's your favorite tabletop game that you've played?
My 2 favorite that I have played through my life have been Star Wars D6 Star Wars, and then Deadlands. And Deadlands because I don't even like westerns, but the whole creating games based upon a deck of cards. Both the games are for the most part classless games. They're non-leveling games.
Yeah.
They both have Star Wars has force points. Deadlands has poker chips, so you can use those to either make your stats better, or you can save them to save your bacon. Is how Deadlands puts it. So I rolled bad, so you got white poker chips, red poker chips, and blue poker chips, and you just missed a roll that you're going to die. You can spend a white poker chip to increase your die roll by 1.
Okay.
But then you could use a blue poker chip to automatically succeed.
Okay.
You totally missed. Oh, here's a blue poker chip. I totally succeed. But if you save those up, you can use those to make your stats better as well.
That's quite the range of poker chips. +1 and then automatically succeed.
Oh yeah. Well, getting a blue poker chip, like getting a white poker chip is you played in character and hey, here you go, here's a white poker chip.
Yeah.
Whereas a blue poker chip is you played in character the whole time, you did up a whole bunch of awesome things, you saved the party. Like it's easy to white poker chip. It's next to impossible to get a poker chip. So the blue poker chip's rare. And then in Star Wars, your force points. Basically, I'm gonna double my roll, and you spend it's like whatever I roll, it doubles it, which is you're pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
Well, it gets even crazier because another thing Star Wars has that I love is a wild die. So you end up with a big die pool of 6-sided dice, and hey, I've got 5d6. 4 will be one color, and then your 5th die will be another color. Well, if that wild die rolls a 6, you add 6 and you roll it again. If it rolls a 6 again, you just keep going. It can explode.
Exploding dice.
Um, yeah, it was. The system came out of Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters RPG that came out in 85 or 86. I can't remember, but it was the basic rules that became the Star Wars RPG, and that was where exploding dice really started.
Originated from. Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
I like exploding dice. I don't like it for every game. And I've run across a bunch of games over the years that I love. One of my favorite, not to play because it's not fun to play, but to make characters, is the old Palladium Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That game is so much fun to make characters in.
I didn't know that was a RPG. Oh, that's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
it was great. You can make and it's funny because you can roll randomly for what what creature you mutate with. So you're a mutated gerbil or a pigeon. It can be something just super duper freaking random.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
that is pretty cool.
At events, I've had people sit down. We've got several copies of the Ninja Turtles core book, and I've seen a table full of people just making characters. They don't want to play; they just want to make characters.
Well, that was kind of the inspiration for like this game, is because half the fun for me was always like creating characters. Like I would just hammer out D&D characters over and over, and I'm like, I wonder which one I want to play. Like if I actually do get to play a game again, like which one do I actually want to use?
Then after a while, you're like, this is my giant pile of possible NPCs.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And if they become NPCs, like they get to live on, And I think that that's a big draw for DMing for me too, is like creating characters and using them later. And
I absolutely love, again, that's one of the things I love about being a GM is you get to sit down and create these fun, great worlds. It's like being a writer, but you don't have to write every bit of dialogue.
Right.
You're sitting down and you're creating the bones of it, and then letting everybody else do an interactive choose your own adventure.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot. The best way it's ever been put is like interactive storytelling adventure. And, that's how I've always, since hearing it, that's how I've always looked at it. And I think,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I actually know some writers that they'll sit down and they'll take the story that they're working on, and they'll turn it into a campaign, and then run it, and then use bits and pieces from their game to flesh out their story.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
It's hilarious because it's like, knowing that they've done it, I'm like, I can totally see this situation happening at a table now because of this. It's funny to read through books from authors within the last few years that that they're sitting somewhere playing an RPG,
and they're like, I wonder if this would be good in my story or not.
We get a comment that says that's how the Expanse came about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My fiance and I are absolutely obsessed with The Expanse. I've watched it 2 times now. I mean, up to like this new season that's come out. But,
it started out as a set of homebrew rules. In fact, there's an RPG for it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's an Expanse RPG.
That is so great. I love hard sci-fi things like that in Star Trek. That's something I'm gonna have to look up now. As soon as we're done with this interview, I'm looking it up.
So, question: what are some of your non-fantasy influences, books, studies, experience that have found their way into parts of Fables?
I think probably the biggest thing is like I love real life adventures too. Like my brother and I, he recently got a boat, and he has a friend who owns 500 or 1,000 acres combined out here in Texas that we'll go hunting and fishing on all the time. And like being out in nature with, it kind of gives you that magical feeling that in a different way that you receive while playing like tabletop RPGs, like the thing that like when you're in like a fantasy setting, like you're immersed in it, whether it's a book or a game or something, like you get like that magical feeling, and I think that's what really, that like people like us, that we love about these types of settings. And I think that you can receive a similar kind of feeling while being like strictly in nature and being a
Yeah,
part of it.
when I was younger, I spent a lot of time out in nature, living up here. I moved up to Pacific Northwest. I was in the early '90s, and then my last year of high school moved down to Texas, and both places I spent tons of time.
Right.
Pretty much everywhere I lived, I spent a lot of time. I don't spend quite as much time outdoors as I used to. As I've gotten
Yeah.
older and broken, and when you go outdoors with the military, it kind of ruins your outdoorsiness somewhat.
I'm sure. I am absolutely sure. I yeah, I couldn't even imagine. Beyond that though, I do got to say I've always been like a huge gamer. Like from 5 years old I got an N64, and I was part of the generation. Like I was like halfway between like, let's just have our kids play video games for the rest of their lives, and I actually go outside and do things, you know what I mean, as a kid. Like my friends and I would play tag like crazy. We would play games like, I remember watching Lord of the Rings, and then me and my friend would go and like pretend to fight monsters in his yard, and I was like pretending to be Legolas and stuff. But I like, we just played games all the time, so like I have just a history of playing a plethora of different sorts of games, and I've tried so many at this point.
Yeah, RPGs are just a next level of all the imagination games we played when we were kids.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was a little weirder than other kids because my first I played AD&D, the book that I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
I helped out around the house and went to Sears and bought that with my brother when I was 4. So I started playing RPGs at the age of 4. So
That's
I was
that's
I
legit.
was going out and playing tag was an escape away from playing an escaping game.
I wish I would have played. I don't want to say that, but it would have been cool if I was one of those kids that played like AD&D when I was young. But
It was a lot of fun.
yeah,
But I had an older brother that was always willing to kind of keep me in the loop. And he's 9 years older than me, so I was 4, he was 13, and he was willing to let his annoying little brother uh, come in and play. And I probably sucked, but in my brain, I was the best thing ever. Uh,
yeah, your experience was amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
I
I probably ruined I probably ruined a few
I
games.
always get jealous of those stories where it's like you growing up playing AD&D, or like in the 80s, and it for me it's like something I romance in my head all the time.
It wasn't nearly as cool as it sounds. We were always picked on. We were the really weird kid in school because D&D was. Well, I lived through the Satanic Panic. If you've ever researched
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
No, I know. That
my
was the
parents.
first thing that like I knew about D&D was like
Yeah, that's right after the Mazes and Monsters show showed on TV with Tom Hanks. I want him. I don't care who he does it with, but I want him as penance for Mazes and Monsters to go and play D&D with some group live. But I remember Mazes and Monsters came out. Family, we owned a comic book store, and the very next week we had picketers out in front, picketing our store.
wow,
Uh, I
that's
remember being
crazy.
and it was so funny because it lasted off and on. You just get a
Yeah.
weird flip. And, I remember I was in kindergarten going into the store, and lady out front like, "Are they teaching that devil stuff in there?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, they are." And just back in. And my dad overheard it. He laughed. My dad was a pretty awesome guy.
Oh,
And
well, what can you do
he
at that point? Yeah.
yeah, my dad was a big. I got my sarcasm and my smartassery from him completely.
It's good.
Uh,
Yeah, I remember when I first got invited to play D&D. I was young, and I was like, "Isn't that the game where like devils, like people play with devils and stuff. Like in my head, I thought D&D was like a Ouija board style game. I was like, I'm not about that. I'm not gonna be a part of this at all. Yeah. I think people are trained to learn. Like that's kind of how it is. Like at that time, yeah, not so much anymore.
Well, yeah, because it was, it was this game that nobody knew about, and you had, for the most part, it was teenage boys, and they in their parents' basement.
Right.
So it was this unknown thing that teenagers were doing. So it's got to be bad.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like rock and
and then,
roll was like the cool kid Satanist club, and D&D was the nerdy kid Satanist club.
yeah, it was hilarious because we'd get the religious people that come out and pick it, but it was always it was always the people that I was never worried about anybody coming out and pick it. Go pick it all you want. Have your voice heard. You don't like D&D, great. You can come pick it at our store, and we'll probably get more business because of it. Because people are like, "Is it really that bad? Let me go ahead and check it out."
Yeah.
Wow, this is awesome. Take it too. And it'd be funny because we would have guys that come in and be like, "Hey, do you guys have D&D?" We're like, "Yeah, we got it here." And it's like, "Hey, and I'll take these." And we would put like slow moving comics right next to the counter, because whenever there were pickets and if anybody was coming in to buy something D&D, they'd grab just a couple random comics off of the
So
shelf,
they could hide it.
and they'd be walking out, and it'd be a brown bag, and they'd come out like, "Well, you in there buying the devil books?" Like, "No, I'm Betty and Veronica, see?" And they just walk up with the most random comics.
This is the best business sense ever.
Yeah, and it was because I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, if we move, like, as I watched, several people do stuff like that, I was like, hey, if we move some of our slow moving stuff at that rack, that it was at a space that people didn't look at, but it was at a space that these guys would just grab stuff
Right.
off the shelf to hide what they were buying, like, because it'd be funny. It wasn't just D&D. They'd come in and they buy Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, but they would be ashamed of buying it, so they just grab other random things to buy. And it was just so silly
That's weird.
that
Yeah.
comics and games were role-playing games were so demonized back then. And it was never bad for business. The people that scared me were the ones that people, like, we had to go to town hall meetings a couple times because we had people say, "Hey, we need to close these down. You have to revoke their business license." And they were usually not the crazy churchgoers that were out there saying demons. They were the ones that were just trying to take advantage of trying to control a business in town.
Yeah.
And it was really frustrating. I remember sitting in on several different meetings in different towns. Everybody talks about all the people that were going after rock. All it wasn't the churchgoers that went after the rock in the long run. It was Al Gore's wife. Got it before Congress. And so when
Yeah.
Dee Snyder, Bob, John Denver, and all of them came out and testified.
That's
And then we
crazy.
got the ratings. And it's funny because the little explicit lyrics tag
Yeah.
it just made people want that CD more. It's got explicit lyrics. Mom, come buy this for me.
That Yeah, when people explain like how things used to be before like my generation came up, it makes me miss like not being able to be a part of that, but also it makes me wonder like where people's heads were at when they're like screaming about D&D being a satanic game, and I wonder where those people's feelings are nowadays. Like
Well,
do they
vast
still do
majority of
that?
those people are probably dead.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. That's very fair. Yeah.
It was the early 80s and most of them were in their 40s then. So, that was, 30,
40
40
years
years
ago.
ago.
40 years ago now.
Yeah. And so a lot of them, it was just, it was something that was, they didn't understand. It was being played by teenagers in basements.
Yeah.
So you got, you come down to you come down to your basement and there's four teenagers like, oh, shh, shh, shh. And then it's all hot, like, oh my God, what are they doing? And it's
Somebody
people
with
like,
devil
what?
down there.
It's like, well, your basement's dark. Like, they don't have a choice. There's one light in the corner.
Yeah. That's where they're playing.
So yeah, it because anything that is different and it always had that aspect of being underground and hidden and stuff. And the same thing with metal music is all kids would buy a record or tape or CD, and then they go off to their room and just listen to it. So
Yeah.
then you get a kid that's being moody teenager, and they're like, oh, it's because of that D&D, it's because of that heavy metal. And it's like,
Because of
well, no,
puberty. Other hormones. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's always that perfect storm.
Yeah.
I remember in the 90s, people complaining about video games like Doom and Duke Nukem and stuff like that. Like, oh my God, it's rotting kids. Late 80s, early 90s, Mortal Kombat. Oh, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
The internet's gonna kill us all. So
Wonder how many-
people are afraid of something new and different.
Yeah. I mean, I think 2012 was the last time we were all supposed to die. I'm not sure what the new one's supposed to be, but
Was it a Netflix released that one of their highest stream movies in 2020 was 2012?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it hit a bunch of random records. So people this year were like, go and watch disaster movies, and
I mean,
for some reason, everybody looked up 2012.
This last year is probably one of the most historic ever, like, of a year. Like, just the pure year, like what happened and the scale of a year. Like, it's probably pretty historic. I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
At least in most people, in 40 and under's lifetime.
Right, exactly. I know there's still been a lot of crazy things that's happened before, but like, yeah, in the 2000s, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's given. I know a lot of people have taken more time to be inside and work on the games. Or I know game developers that have been working on video games and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it opened a lot of people's eyes with the whole virus, and how we operate can be different than what we've had so far. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that are because their jobs have given the opportunity, they're moving out of big cities. So that might change a lot of people's mindsets that have only lived in cities. Like earlier this year, talking to a couple individuals that I know that have only lived in big cities, and I said something about supply chain, and if things go crazy, everybody's going to learn how to hunt. And then they were like, well, you can just go to the store and get meat. And I was like, do you know how hamburger gets to the store? And like, they literally didn't none of like farms and all that didn't enter into their head. But you think about the amount of people that have grown up in New York City or Dallas or wherever, and really never leave there. Or if they leave, they fly from one big city and fly to another big city and for a meeting or whatever, and they don't go outside of them. It creates these little bubbles that we forget there's more life outside
of these sprawling metropolises.
And we can all live in our own little bubbles. You go to a small town, and you get people like, oh, I never want to go to a big city, and you take them to a big city, you're like, whoa, that was cool, there's a lot of stuff to do here. It's like you broaden your horizons.
I've always said I like New Braunfels. I've always wanted to live in a place that's like outside of a big city, but like somewhere country, but close enough where, like, if I want to go do something or if I need something, I can just drive there.
That's the way I like. I don't like giant cities. I don't like living in the middle of nowhere. I like to be able to drive to the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And I like to drive to the city.
I would love to live in the middle of nowhere, just not be stuck there.
Well, with Elon Musk's new Starlink or whatever, makes it easier, right?
I think we were talking about. I don't know if it was on the interview, but those are the things that I don't even know what's happening usually.
Yeah, so it's a bunch of small satellites that give, actually, I've used it a couple times. It's pretty good internet, but the more people that get on it, of course, the more they'll track it down. But I'm intrigued to see where it goes in the next couple of years. Let's see. is there anything that we haven't talked about for your game that you would like to talk about?
You were covering a lot of questions.
We've kind of gone all over the place.
Yeah, I think I've been able to expand kind of in detail about the game itself. Everything is a work in progress, so everything's subject to change and subject to improvement. So, no, I mean, I think we covered mostly everything. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about this with your viewers and you as well. And I hope we could do this again at a later time whenever the game's further down development and we can talk
Absolutely.
about the changes that have happened from then.
Yeah, we'll stay in contact, and you can hop onto the library's Discord as well. I'll shoot you a link.
Yeah, do
And
that.
if you got any questions, got a little self promote tab. You can, you want to get a game together. You can do the same. You can do that. We have people that like to game,
Yeah.
and we're a growing community. We spend a lot of time building up what we do, physically. And with 2020, it's been like, oh, hey, how do we pivot and adjust to offer more than just stuff at events?
Yeah. Well, luckily, most things are online now, so you are.
Can't wait to get into events again because busting out the library is so much fun. You watching people pick up books like, what is this?
I don't think about it often. I probably just kind of blocked it in my memory because it was so painful. But right before COVID hit, my fiance and I were supposed to participate or like do all of South by Southwest. Which, if you've been to Texas, South by Southwest, one of the biggest festivals probably in the whole country. Hugely fun. And then after that, we were gonna go on a cruise, and like literally a week before they canceled everything because of COVID was our or a week after they canceled everything because of COVID was our cruise date, like our day we were going to set out. So we almost made it.
Southwest has a gaming section too now.
Yeah, and
they've invited us, so once things start going back and getting up and going again, I'll contact them about getting down to South by Southwest because I want to get to South by Southwest. I want to get to PAX South in San Antonio. If you've never been to PAX is a blast.
I've wanted to. I haven't gone yet, but
and PAX Unplugged is crazy awesome because there's no video games. It's all tabletop and RPGs and card games. It is awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping to at least participate in some extent with both of those, but next year at some time. I don't think either one of those are happening this year, probably.
So we don't know. Well,
PAX might, but South by Southwest would be 2 months away from now, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Most of the stuff probably before September is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And anything that does, I think most anything that does start back up is going to be at a low attendance and like at half strength. Yeah. They're going to do a ton of stuff online in conjunction with some stuff in person. And then it'll be over the next couple of years ramping back up to where we have events with 100,000 people again.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. It's kind of crazy where we're at. I don't even remember how it was last year this time.
Okay, so talked to you before we started streaming about the confessional.
Right.
Rules that set it out is name the system, name the character, and then if there's like a class or a race or anything. So D&D 5th ed, half dwarf, half elf, 3/4 dragonborn, whatever. And I'm a sorcerer. Dwarven sorcerer. And then pause and then in character tell your confessional. Like one time there I was, watched the entire party getting killed by a red dragon. I could have killed the red dragon, but I had all the gold, so I just left. Something fun like that.
Okay. It'd be kind of hard to do it in character because it was D&D 5th edition. It was one of the first campaigns that I ever played in it, and I was playing with a group of friends in real life. And I was playing a gnome wizard, and I had we're all friends, we mess with each other a lot, and I had a buddy of mine who, his backstory, his wife died, and because of that, he was always kind of a dick. So I decided in retaliation, when I caught him alone and I could do it, I would create illusions of his wife and have her tell him certain things. And I kept that up for pretty much the whole campaign, and he didn't even know it was me. Like I would work with the DM and like tell him, like these are the things I want the wife to say to him, and like you make it happen because I don't want him to know it's me. And then by the time like it was like Curse of Strahd, I think we were doing, um, and by the time it was done, like he didn't know it was me. And like we packed up the campaign, and like I told him in person, like yeah, I was the one doing that too the whole time. It wasn't a ghost of your wife. uh,
I have to say that is actually, but you got to tell it in character. So just say
okay,
tell the name of your character, 5th edition gnome wizard.
right.
So what was the name of your character?
I believe my character's name, uh, Dryry, Dryry. It was Dry, something like that. It was very strange. I have a very strange name. uh, a buddy of mine, he years ago, I can't remember what he. Well, he had his wife die years ago. So, but he was always kind of a dick. You know, he would pick on the rest of us, pick on me specifically about my height and the other possibly comedic things I did while we were together. So I decided while he was taking watch one night that I would create an illusion and pretend it was his wife, the ghost of his wife, and the ghost of his wife would tell him things, and uh, then I kind of tried to steer him on the right track from there. Didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to. She was supposed to be nice, and yeah, it didn't happen that way. So he kept being a dick, and because of that, I kept doing it to him, and he never found out. But I think he became a little better of a person because of me.
Awesome. Yeah, I really have to sit down and edit these because the ideas will because I had some up on Facebook a while back, or I mean up on YouTube a while back that put a voice modulation on them, put a character cutout, and put a brick wall with a light behind it. So you're confessing, but
Yeah.
can't it's like unsolved mysteries.
You should darken my face so you don't.
Yeah. Well, we're doing just cutouts, so I was getting started to do little silhouettes.
Yeah.
And just a generic little silhouette. So that way, that's part of the reason why I ask what like class and race of the character. So we get kind of if it's a female elvish rogue, we'll try to get an elvish roguish shape.
Right, I gotcha. Yeah.
And then we ask for the system. That way, people can relate to the system.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One of my favorites is I can't wait to redo this one. Is the guy, his character was like crazy over the top, and he was like, "My name is," and I forget what his name is. He would say his whole name, and he's like, "President of Mars," and he always referred to himself in the third person during this whole story. Well, we bleeped his name, so he's like, "I bleep President of Mars."
You should send me your YouTube so I can see this. Is it on your channel actually?
It's not up there. They're not up there at the moment because I haven't re-uploaded all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I just located all my old stuff the other day, so
yeah.
I should probably this next weekend get cracking on all that.
Well, when and if you do get it up, you should send me these because it sounds like it would be pretty entertaining to watch.
Yeah, and then as we do these interviews, we get people to tell us do a confessional, and I can clip all these out and do the same thing because I just need the audio track and then put those up and have fun with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hey everybody that's watching, thank you for sticking around. But the library is closing down for the night. And it has been great having you guys here. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Got some new books to share, and we're going to go over news and new Kickstarters tomorrow as well. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Okay, I'll stop streaming on my end.